The story of King Arthur is often remembered as a collection of bright, shining tales, knights in gleaming armor, magical swords, and the quest for a holy relic. But when we look at Sir Thomas Malory's definitive version, written in the late 15th century, we find something much more complex and much more tragic. Malory doesn't just give us a series of adventures, he gives us the rise and fall of a civilization. It is a story about the attempt to build something perfect in a world that is fundamentally broken. To understand how it all ends, we have to start with how it begins, in a time of chaos and prophecy. Before Arthur was a king, Britain was a fractured land, caught in a violent struggle between the native Britons, represented by a red dragon, and the invading Saxons, represented by a white dragon. This conflict is the backdrop for the arrival of Merlin. Merlin is the architect of the Arthurian age, a prophet and a magician who sees the patterns of history before they happen. He is the one who orchestrates the rise of Uther Pendragon, the man who would become Arthur's father. Through a bit of dark magic, Merlin ensures that Uther wins the love of a woman named Igerna. This union results in the birth of Arthur, a child kept secret and raised by a man named Sir Ector to protect him from the enemies of his bloodline. For years, Arthur grows up without knowing his true identity, until the moment that changes everything. After Uther's death, the kingdom falls into a period of lawlessness. Then, a miracle occurs, a sword appears, embedded in a stone, with an inscription stating that whoever pulls it out is the rightful king of all Britain. When a young Arthur, acting as a simple squire, draws the sword, he isn't just performing a feat of strength, he is claiming a divine right to rule. It is a moment of absolute legitimacy, a signal that the era of chaos is over and the era of order has begun. As Arthur consolidates his power, he builds a kingdom that feels almost otherworldly. He marries Guinevere and he establishes the Round Table, a fellowship of knights where no one sits at the head, symbolizing equality and shared purpose. This is the Golden Age. Arthur expands his influence, winning wars in Ireland and Gaul, and the Round Table becomes the standard for chivalry. But even in this peak, the shadows are already moving. Malory introduces us to Morgan Le Fay, Arthur's sister, who serves as the primary source of magical sabotage. She doesn't just want to kill Arthur, she wants to undermine the very foundation of his authority. While her schemes are constant, a more profound shift occurs through a different kind of violence. It's called the Dolorous Stroke, performed by the knight Sir Merlin. This single, catastrophic act of violence strikes at the heart of the realm, causing a spiritual wound that cannot be healed. It marks the moment the Holy Grail is lost to the earthly realm. From this point on, the story shifts. It moves away from the heroic adventures of men and toward a spiritual tragedy. The Grail quest is the climax of this spiritual movement. The knights set out to find the vessel of Christ, seeking a divine purpose that transcends their worldly duties. While many knights fail, a young knight named Galahad, the purest of them all, achieves the ultimate victory. He witnesses the Sangreal and, having reached a state of spiritual perfection, ascends to heaven. But his departure is bittersweet. When Galahad leaves, he takes the divine grace of the world with him. The spiritual vacuum he leaves behind makes the earthly realm vulnerable. The magic is fading, and the world is being left to the whims of human passion and frailty. This is where the focus shifts from the divine to the deeply, painfully human. The most significant figure in this transition is Sir Lancelot. Lancelot is the greatest of all the knights, a man of unmatched skill and courage. But he is also a man of intense, consuming passion. His devotion to Queen Guinevere becomes the crack in the foundation of Camelot. Their affair is not just a personal betrayal, it is a political and social catastrophe. It creates a tension that the code of chivalry cannot resolve. How can a knight be both a paragon of virtue and a man who breaks his most sacred vows? The end of the dream arrives through a cycle of betrayal and vengeance that feels almost inevitable. A trap is set by Agravain and Modred, who is Arthur's illegitimate son or nephew, a figure of pure disruption, and they catch Lancelot in the Queen's chamber. This scandal breaks the unity of the Round Table. When Lancelot attempts to rescue Guinevere, he inadvertently kills the brothers of Sir Gawain. This is the turning point. Gawain, one of Arthur's most loyal knights, is consumed by a thirst for vengeance. The bond between the king and his knights is severed, replaced by a rigid, destructive cycle of blood feuds. While Arthur is distracted by the civil war brewing between Lancelot and Gawain, Modred seizes the opportunity to strike. He moves to take the throne, acting as the ultimate catalyst for the dissolution of everything Arthur has built. The saga concludes with the Battle of Camlan, a final, apocalyptic clash. It is a battle where the old order meets its end. In the chaos, Arthur finally kills Modred, but he is mortally wounded in the process. As the sun sets on his reign, the king is a broken man, and his kingdom is a broken place. In his final moments, Arthur commands Sir Bedivere to take his sword, Excalibur, and return it to the Lady of the Lake. It is a symbolic closing of the circle. The king's power is being returned to the supernatural realm from which it was borrowed. Arthur is then carried away on a black barge to the Vale of Avilion, leaving behind a world that no longer has a place for him. When we look back at Malory's work, a few themes stand out that explain why this story has endured for centuries. First, there is the tension between divine right and human frailty. Arthur is a king chosen by God, marked by the sword in the stone, but he is still a man subject to the chaos of human emotion. He can command armies and conquer lands, but he cannot control the hearts of his wife or his best friend. The very things that make him a great king, his pursuit of a perfect chivalric order, are the things that make his downfall so inevitable. There is also the concept of the end of an age. Malory's narrative structure mirrors the way things often work in history and myth. There is a period of expansion and light, followed by a period of internal rot and spiritual withdrawal. The departure of the Grail is a powerful metaphor for this. It suggests that even the most perfect human institutions are subject to decay. When the spiritual or the ideal is removed from a society, only the raw, often violent, realities of human nature remain. We also see the double-edged nature of chivalry. On one hand, it provides a code of honor and a way for men to live with purpose. On the other hand, its rigidity creates cycles of vengeance that are impossible to break. Gawain's feud with Lancelot isn't just a personal grudge, it is the mechanism by which the entire social structure of the Round Table is dismantled. The code demands justice, but in this world, justice often looks like a blood feud. Finally, there is the struggle between fate and agency. Characters like Lancelot and Modred seem to be acting out a destiny that has been written by prophecy and magic long before they were born. They struggle against their own natures and the expectations of their roles, but they ultimately seem to be moving toward a preordained end. Malory's King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table is not a fairy tale about a hero who wins. It is a tragedy about a man who tries to build a heaven on earth, only to realize that the earth is too heavy, and human hearts are too restless to hold it. It is a story of a brilliant, shining light that eventually fades into the mist, leaving us only with the memory of what might have been.